You're watching CW Montana. This is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
And good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. I'm Andrea Lutz. Ahead tonight, the Montana legislature turned its focus to education today. Find out why their latest work might be some good news for students. Plus, it's the end of an era in Helena as a long-standing building is about to be demolished. But first, tonight, our investigation into meth in Montana continues. Police reveal secrets from drug traffickers on how large quantities of drugs are brought into our state. Switches and hidden compartments are often found by police when they stop a massive drug load traveling on Montana's drug superhighway. But as fast as law enforcement can take down these loads, traffickers are already creating new ways to smuggle the drugs into Montana.
Methamphetamine. It's being distributed in large quantities to Montana, and it's driven here. Mexican cartels use our interstate system as a drug superhighway.
An increased level of violence.
Lieutenant Brandon Woolley with the Billings Police Department sees it all too well.
It's coming straight out of Mexico. So you're getting high purities, 98, 99% pure methamphetamine.
Violent crimes statewide have increased 34%. In Billings, meth-driven crimes have increased by 75%. For over 2 years, Woolley led the Eastern Montana High-Intensity Drug Task Force. His goal? To dismantle drug organizations.
We've done search warrants in literally every neighborhood in this community. In neighborhoods that, you would go and you'd see, a couple $1 million homes.
The drug scene in Montana has significantly changed. Years ago, meth was manufactured in homes, but state law cracked down on homegrown labs. Now, a call is made to Mexico and the distribution line begins.
It's supply and demand. And on the demand side, you have the addicts, you have the drive, you have the desire or the need for the drug. And then on the supply side, you have the manufacturing. And then you have the distribution hubs, you have the traffickers to get it to place.
In Billings, drug seizures exceed any other in our state.
Billings has always had a pretty healthy appetite for meth.
But the Eastern Montana Drug Task Force is making progress in taking down drug operations.
Just this year alone, to date, there are over 120 pounds of methamphetamine and over $600,000 in bulk cash seizures.
Still, violent crimes continue to plague the city, meaning there's more work to be done. That's because traffickers have gotten incredibly creative in finding ways to avert law enforcement. What looks like an ordinary car sitting in this Billings tow truck yard is one example.
So during our searches, our guys are looking for anomalies, things that are unusual. But the first thing that kind of popped out in this circumstance was a trunk release switch.
Traffickers using a combination of multiple switches only activated in sequence to trigger a drug compartment to open.
In this particular vehicle, there was another aftermarket hidden switch underneath of the dash. And then when our guys did it, I think there was some type of use of either like a blinker or the heater gauge going all the way over. If this vehicle was pulled over and there's a roadside search, if an officer's going through quickly, not taking his time, he probably would likely miss this.
Drugs were hidden in the cavity of this car, under the seats, extending from the dash all the way to the trunk.
Enough to get several pounds of drugs.
And this particular vehicle was used to cross the border into Mexico and come back up to Montana, likely several times. Traffickers using Montana's interstate to make illegal profits off our community.
Here we are on that corridor, 1, 2, we do have kind of a large rate of, some lower income that ends up turning to the drug use, whether it be for mental health care because they're self-medicating or just the drug itself.
Montana's first lines of defense in the meth epidemic are police force. They know they have their work cut out for them.
You look at all of our violent crimes, most of our homicides are methamphetamine related. Majority of our officer-involved shootings, methamphetamine related. And if you were able to, in a magic world, carve that out, I think you would have a lot less problems.
The Eastern Montana High-Intensity Drug Task Force was recently awarded for their work in taking down and dismantling drug cartel activity in Montana. But of course, their work still continues. We do have a traffic alert for Montanans traveling west. 2 different avalanches shut down Interstate 90 in the westbound lanes near St. Regis. And of course, the report came in just after 4 tonight, closing all traffic going westbound. There are no reports of injuries, but before that, another avalanche at 2:30. That snow slide shut down westbound lanes at the Idaho-Montana state line. The road tonight, right now, is still closed. A Montana state senator is heading to the White House in hopes of saving Colstrip's coal plants. Republican Senator Dwayne Ankeny will meet with the Trump administration's energy officials in March. The future of Colstrip has been up in the air since Washington and Oregon said that they would limit their fossil fuel use, much of which supplied by the plants at Colstrip. But he says not having Colstrip would jeopardize national security for military installations across the Northwest.
And with all these power plants going down, scheduled down over the next 5 years, this leaves no base load to provide power for these, for the Northwest, but in particular, provide for electricity for the national security. So that's what we're going to talk about is using Colstrip as a base load power. So when the wind don't blow and the sun don't shine, you can still flip that switch and get power.
Ankeny says that he is confident the Colstrip plant will survive. He says others will step up and run the plants even without federal intervention. The framework for the future development of Bozeman's downtown is piquing the interest of many, and now a plan for growth is being unveiled. Leaders from the community as well as outside consultants came together to unveil the vision and framework for downtown's next decade. Bozeman continues to grow, even since its last improvement plan, which was in 2009. City leaders say this plan would help Bozeman grow as a whole.
You might see that Bozeman Creek becomes more integrated into our downtown streetscape. Right now it's under parking lots, and that's something that's a lot of people have identified as a way to sort of bring more charm and character to the downtown. Other things that were identified by the consultants, there's a need for some smaller office spaces, and so they've gone into fine detail about some code changes that could make that a little easier.
The city will fully adopt the new plan come April. It is the end of a shopping era for Helena. This week, contractors will tear down the Capitol Hill Mall, which sat empty for years. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian tells us what will come next.
On Wednesday, the Capitol Hill Mall was quiet. But on Thursday, heavy equipment could be on the move as demolition is set to begin on the mall building.
It's exciting for us to be able to move forward with the project. I think it's also exciting for the community to see the progress, and it'll be good to see what comes of the site.
Developer Dick Anderson bought an interest in the property last year. His company, D&M Development, plans to demolish the mall building and redevelop the area.
We might have to use some extra time to haul off the debris, but for the most part, the building will be clear by about the beginning of April.
Most of the debris will be recycled. The mall, built in the 1960s, has been mostly empty for years. Lucky Lil's Casino, the last remaining business in the mall, closed several weeks ago when its lease expired.
Yeah, we're looking at site plans right now. We've thought about apartment buildings, potentially a hotel, and then various commercial mixed-use buildings throughout the property.
Developers are looking for possible tenants for the 13-acre property. They say they could fit up to 8 or 10 different buildings.
I think you'll be surprised how big the site is once the building's gone and you can see through to the valley.
They're hoping this project can be just a beginning for the area around the mall.
This redevelopment, I think, will hopefully help spur some more development in this area and kind of revitalize this main corridor coming into Helena.
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Once demolition begins, drivers will no longer be able to cross the mall property at Oak Street. City leaders say that section of the street isn't publicly maintained, so it's going to be fenced off once the work starts. In the Montana legislature, a budget subcommittee votes to approve a $24 million increase in spending that will freeze student tuition for Montana universities. The money is requested by the governor, and lawmakers are calling it U-System funding. A committee endorsed $2 million for Montana students, which is $3 million less than Bullock requested. Lawmakers say they endorse the tuition freeze because university leaders promised to place more emphasis on technical education and career recruiting. This vote is just the first step in the legislative budgeting process.
This is the beginning of a journey, and so I say that so I know as we do some of these things, there will be some folks that are in full agreement with some of them or all of them, and some that aren't. but ultimately we are beginning the journey.
Bullock also wants money for preschool funding, but the panel did not approve that proposal. The next step, though, is action by the full House Appropriations Committee. That should happen next month. More anti-Semitic flyers are found in Missoula neighborhoods this week, and Missoula police are investigating. Travis Welsh with the Missoula Police Department says detectives are gathering information from citizen reports and working with the University of Montana. In a separate incident, 2 men were arrested for allegedly spraying swastikas on a building on West Broadway. And that was after someone spotted some spray paint and profanity on a window of a downtown motel. So now police are investigating if there's a connection between the vandalism and the flyers. Another step in the process to rebuild the Sperry Chalet in Glacier National Park. Tonight, contractors began the bidding process. The Sperry is one of the last historic chalets in Glacier, and it burned down in 2017 during the Sprague fire. Phase 1 to stabilize the chalet was complete. Now the park will choose from contractors all across the United States to finish it. Architects say, though, that the chalet will keep its rustic appeal.
So it's very similar to what was there, so the layout and the rooms, very similar. We had to make some upgrades for like the stairs to be code compliant, so there will be some minor modifications, but I think for the first time visitor they may not notice those.
And the stone masonry on the outside did burn in the fire, but that will remain the same. So it's interesting to see what they will do with this. Still to come tonight on the MTN 9 o'clock news. The state tried it 20 years ago, but the results were disastrous. Now one Montana lawmaker wants to give it another try. We'll explain coming up. And of course, right after the break, Bob McGuire delivers your statewide forecast, so don't go anywhere.